Welcome back to the latest episode ng FYI, a voter education series. But today we'll try to be a little bit also voter agitation series. Pero bago natin pag-usapan yung election, yung impluensya ng China or so-called malign foreign interference at mga kung ano pa bang mga issues, I want to go into the basics of the latest development dito sa West Philippine Sea. Kaya ang kasama natin is, just a bunch of folks I met in the street kanina. Si Justice Carpio. Thank you very much, Justice Carpio, for joining us. And Admiral Ong. Thank you very much, Admiral. So, just the greatest people to discuss this issue. Admiral, maybe I can start with you first. What is the beef in the Sandy Cay and what is the actual status of the dispute there? I mean, both of you gentlemen had an important role when the world got to know about even the existence of this feature, if I can put it that way. I think back then, Admiral, you were in charge of the West Command when sumabog itong issue na to nung panahon ni Digong?
So that's around 2017, I was the commander.
Yeah. Was this when Foreign Secretary Cayetano was in charge and was Admiral Garcia already there? Wala pa, no? 2019 pa yata si Garcia or 2018?
I forgot. But just to say, that's the time when we were supposed to set up semi-permanent presence doon sa Sandy.
So, just for the purpose of people who are not familiar, I'm sure Justice will also pitch in because he was also the one who publicized it. So, ano bang pinag-awayan natin? Is this a low tide elevation? Is this a rock? Is this an island? Is this like reclaimed area? Saan siya? Anong relevance niya?
There are basically 3 piles of sand at west of Pag-asa Island. And pag ginugtong mo yung Pag-asa Island and yung 3 sand cays na yun, 3 piles of sand, it creates sort of a lagoon. Okay. So it can be reached from Pag-asa Island.
It's within how many miles of the Pag-asa? 6, 7?
Very near.
Or within 10 nautical miles, something like that?
Very near.
About mga within 2 nautical miles.
2 nautical miles. So it bumps out the territorial sea of Pag-asa, something like if it's a low tide elevation.
It's within.
Right.
Kasi territorial sea is 12 nautical miles.
But if you have a low tide elevator, doesn't it like expand further?
Yes, you
bumps.
can use it as a baseline.
Baseline,
Extend
exactly. So it adds 2 more nautical miles.
That's why the ruling said the Subi Reef forms part of the territorial sea of Pag-asa because it's measured from a low tide feature. But the tribunal said we don't have to use actually Pag-asa, we don't have to use Sandy Cay because there are many other low tide features.
That can bump out.
Yes, they can bump out, extend the territorial sea to reach Subi Reef.
But the Sandy Cay, what is the relevance of the Sandy Cay, Admiral? Like back then, nung sumabog yung issue na yun, what was your calculation in the Navy?
Setting aside yung legal, from a tactical point of view.
Yes, please, tactical operation.
It's too near Pag-asa Island. It's too near. Okay. If you allow them access to, parang in a fishing contest, magkadikit lang kayo. And they can actually see what's happening inside Pag-asa Island. So it's too near.
They already have Subi Reef, then they'll have Sandy Cay, medyo you feel surrounded. And okay, so what was going on when you were in charge, Admiral, and what's going on right now?
Well, nung time na yun, I think yung question that hovers around how were the case formed, yung 3 sands of pilot at the outset. Then at some point, we noticed an increase of Chinese militia vessel presence doon sa lagoon itself. From a minimum of around 6 militia vessels to a high of maybe
40, 20 plus. Yeah.
Kasi it's not that large. Then there were Coast Guard vessels patrolling around Pag-asa Island, almost adjacent to yung tatlong case na tatlong sa pilot sa. So that created sort of a tension na okay, ano yung interest nila dito? Baka i-occupy nila.
Like the Mischief Reef, Panganiban Reef, kasi parang fishing hut muna sila, di ba? Then the next thing you know,
correct. Although, if you look at it, hindi siya tenable in sense.
Masyado siyang dikit, yeah.
Actually, even think of permanent structure.
Yeah. You, Justice, you expose this, again, for the purpose of public education. Anong technical, legal ramification? Is this a low tide elevation? And what's going on?
This was discussed in the arbitral award.
Yep.
Because half of the year, Sandy Cay is above water at high tide. And the other half of the year, it's submerged. When the storms arrive, the storms will disperse the sand. But when the storms are over, the action of the waves will build up the sun again.
Right.
So there was a question whether it's high tide or low tide. Because under UNCLOS, if it's low tide, you can use that as a baseline to extend your territorial sea. So the tribunal said, we don't have to discuss sun decay because there are other low tide elevations
Just around.
around Pag-asa, which can be used to extend the territorial sea to reach Subi Reef. So what happened was when originally sun decay was mostly submerged
During high tide.
during high tide. But because the Chinese pulverized the corals in Subi Reef, and a pulverized coral is sand,
Nag-ano siya? Washed over.
it drifted to sun decay and built up the sand on sun decay, so it became permanently above water at high tide.
So it became accidentally a high tide elevation.
Yes.
From a naturally formed low tide elevation
Yes.
status. Okay, now I see. Okay.
Okay, so
Interesting.
I think the three now are above water at high tide permanently. I mean, at this time now. So the strategy of China, and I discussed this even before,
Yes.
that China would cease sun decay because sun decay now, if it's permanently above water at high tide, would generate its own territorial sea to include Subi Reef. And therefore, we will lose Subi Reef as part of our territorial sea. Because, you have Subi Reef, you have Pag-asa, and sun decay is here in the middle, nearer to Pag-asa. If sun decay is permanently above water at high tide, it becomes an island in itself with its own territorial sea. So if China has sovereignty over this, that island, sun decay, will have a territorial sea that will cover Subi Reef, so they preserve Subi Reef as part of their territory. Because
Even if this was accidentally turned into
well, they would say it's natural because an island must be naturally formed. But the island, half of the year it was naturally formed. Only the storms would disperse the sand. So they would cling to the theory that sun decay is now permanently above water at high tide by the action of nature, and therefore it has a territorial sea that reaches Subi Reef, and therefore Pag-asa no longer includes Subi Reef as its territorial sea. That will now change the arbitral award, because the arbitral award said Subi Reef is part of the territorial sea of Pag-asa. So I said that's why even the pro-China writers also took that up. They said that yes, the moment that's if China possesses that, then China will have now sovereignty over Subi Reef.
I think they always watch us to pick up things. I mean, the last time we were here, this was about Digong, right? And I jokingly said, rendition ba nangyari kay Digong? Next thing I know, literally ginamit ni Medial Dia. This was an extraordinary rendition.
Yeah, but
so we just have to be careful.
Yeah, but there's a flaw in the theory of China.
Yeah.
Because any island that emerges within your territorial sea is part of your territory.
Right.
So all these three sandbars, they're now permanently above water at high tide. They would form part of our territory because they are within our territorial sea. That's the problem of the theory of China, that they now have sovereignty over Subi Reef because it is part of the territory of sun decay, which they now claim. But that's why I propose that we challenge China to submit that dispute to our because it's very clear if anything that emerges from your territorial sea is yours, because that's territorial sea means your territory in the sea. So if there's a new island that will emerge out of within the territorial sea, that's yours. That's
Kahit
very clear.
galing yan sa basura ng kabilang kapitbahay, gano'n. Is there a precedence for that? Yung ginawang kalokohan sa kabilang island, biglang nangyari, lumitaw na island, and then pwede mo i-claim ba yan? I mean, that's not very naturally formed to me.
Yeah, well, this one, because Sandy Cay was half of the year above water at high tide, so there was
Partially
doubt.
above
There was
high
doubt
tide
whether
elevation.
it's a naturally formed island above water at high tide or not. And of course, you can always say that it's a natural action of the nature that made it permanently above water at high tide. But the basic flaw of China, the Chinese position is if that they can get something, they claim something that is already within our territorial
Yeah.
sea. So that I said it will boil down to us who has sovereignty over Pag-asa, because China is also claiming Pag-asa.
Yeah.
So let's challenge China to submit that issue to arbitration, because we have all you have the Treaty of Washington, you have the 1734 Murillo-Velarde map to show that the Spaniards claimed that since 1734. So I think it's I would say that our case in favor of our sovereignty over Pag-asa is as strong as our case on the maritime dispute that we won.
But they say international possession is like 3/4 of the business. I mean, what is the status of possession of the? I mean, who's in charge? Kung 2 nautical miles lang, hindi pa pwede tayo mag-reclaim na rin para idikit natin, parang ginagawa sa Manila Bay. Baka pwede rin tumuling mga Chinese private companies. I mean, who's in charge? Because the Financial Times has come under fire, including by other major Western outlets. Kausap ko lang sila kahapon yung isang araw. Sabi na, bakit yun yung headline na China seizes disputed territory? Like, I think that was literally the headline of Financial Times. And medyo umakyat yung kilay ko kasi I was just writing something about Balikatan, which we'll discuss very shortly. What is the status of possession or control or de facto control or jurisdiction of the Sandy Cay through the cloud of misinformation and disinformation that's happening right now, Admiral, as of this taping, at least?
Well, nobody's physically occupying it.
So,
Number one.
di ba may picture yung mga Chinese? Hindi naman.
Yeah, but they photo op na eh. They just took a picture.
So if we take a picture, we can claim
Yeah,
it's
that's why we
ours.
also went there to have a photo op.
Exactly, yeah,
Because under the 2002 Declaration of Conduct, all the parties agreed that they will not inhabit features that were uninhabited as of 2002.
Right. Of
So,
course, yeah. No unilateral.
all you can do is go there, take a picture, and then you have to leave because you're not supposed to occupy it permanently. That is the agreement, and we try to observe that. China is also trying to observe that, at least for the time being.
But I think photo op and Instagram should be put in the next COC and DOC. Bawal mag-Instagram sa this. But, Admiral, going back, operationally speaking, what on earth is going on? Is this a kasi ang timing niya, interesting din. Massive Balikatan exercises are underway all the way to for the next week or and a half or at least. Ano nakataon lang, o may makulit, may nauto? Ano ba nangyari? Bakit naging bigla issue ulit ang Sandy Cay ngayon?
There's one possibility we're considering is yung it was triggered by yung parang survey or activities natin na
In that
recent
area.
months, yes.
Okay.
They may have misconstrued dito as a
Move to
Yeah.
come in, yeah.
but they could always use it as an excuse. Like yung nangyari sa Sabina show, they use it as an excuse.
So your sense is the Chinese probably were legitimately triggered and fearful that we'll make a big
Well,
move there.
Yung legitimacy is questionable naman. I think that could have been one of the triggers. Kasi kung Balikatan, medyo far off na siya.
So as of now, the status of operational status of the Sandy Cay,
Number
it's
one, nobody's occupying it, but again, tactically, it's near Pag-asa Island. So kung pabilisan lang ng deployment,
tayo pa rin.
mauna tayo.
Gaano kalayong Subi Reef?
Subi Reef is about
7?
from Pag-asa Island, from the low tide, low water mark of Pag-asa. It's about 14 nautical miles.
40?
14, 1-4.
14, yeah, exactly. So from Subi Reef to there is around 12, sabihin natin, for the sake of argument. I mean, although they're not
Yeah,
exactly
that's why if you
mid-distance.
get Sandy Cay, you include Subi Reef as part of your territorial sea.
Yeah, my concern though is operational, right? Mas malapit yung 2 nautical miles
Yeah, it's
sa'yo
very close to
kaysa 12 nautical miles.
Yeah,
diba?
very close to us. It's closer to our island, to
There are
Pag-asa.
3 files of the Sandy Cay,
Yung ano, yeah.
Yung
Yeah.
3 is the one nearest Pag-asa. It's almost like
One, as in makikita mo from, can you see it? Or
Hindi, actually, sa gitla, pwede mo na.
pwede ka mag-swim?
Oh, you can swim. Really.
Oh, wow.
Kasi napalapit siya eh. The farthest one would be Sandy K 1 and 2.
So 3 is so near to the, no? Yung,
Oh. Kaya hindi siya, untenable talaga na they even think of trying to occupy that.
So the pictures were in what area? Sandy Cay 1 or 2 or 3? 2. Oh, so medyo sa gitna.
Kasi siya yung siya yung pinaka
The biggest.
Formed.
para medyo
So yun yung gitna ng bukol basically.
Yes.
So gumaganon siya.
Yung-
And then yung 3 dito
yung
malapit
three
sa...
medyo that would create an unnecessary tension kasi masyadong malapit
Malapit.
sa Pag-asa Island.
And again, without giving away too much, what is our presence in that area so far, Naval, Coast Guard, in terms of operational
We have
responsibility?
permanent presence naman doon, both for Navy, Marines, I think Coast Guard,
Like,
and Air Force.
like how many? Like 2 people, 20
No,
people?
Pag-asa Island itself.
No,
We have a
I know,
permanent
like,
pre-
I'm just saying, just in case something crazy goes on, meron ba tayong contingent dyan na pwede mag-respond
I think there
kaagad?
is enough.
There's enough.
yeah.
Compared to Subirush and the Chinese.
Well, I think the civilian population there is almost 100, no? In
Triple digit na. Triple digit na. And the last time we were discussing dun sa Utak Forum together, yun yung sa Sabina, di ba? Back then, our worry was nadidegrade yung ability natin for deployment kasi binabangga tayo. Where are we today, Admiral, since the last time we had that conversation sa Utak Forum? Kasi as breaking news was coming in dun sa Sabina Shoal naman.
The information I've gotten was after yung Teresa Magbanwa incident, medyo na-tighten yung yung presence nila doon sa Sabina Shoal.
Right.
Now, you must remember that Sabina is almost adjacent to Second Thomas Shoal.
Yun rin,
So
yeah.
parang siya, isang ecosystem yan. So it affects in a way yung posture natin sa Second Thomas Shoal.
No, the reason I'm asking this is because, like, I want people to understand, ang dami nalang point of contact and contention na nangyari, di ba? Siguro nahihilo ang tao. So, Sandy Cay malapit sa Pag-asa, Sabina malapit sa Second Thomas Shoal, right?
From what I've gotten, meron lang silang concentrations. So the concentrations are number 1 in Sandy Cay area because it needs to
Subi Reef, yeah.
the other
Nahawak
one
ng
is in
China.
Sabina Shoal. Post after the Teresa Magbanwa incident, nag-increase yung presence nila ron. And of course, yung sa Second Thomas Shoal because it's near BCP. So those are yung concentrations nila so far. That discounts yung potential deployment nila ng militia vessels in Mission Reef or in other isolated areas.
And Justice, a while ago you were saying one option is we take the legal track. Though we know this is going to be like a very consequential move and it's going to take some time. But from your point of view, in the meantime, should we take this on a international diplomatic tour level? Should we file protests? Should we deploy more naval assets? What do you think in the meantime? Or just chill lang tayo, wag tayo magpa-panic mode or something?
Well, first, we should file a diplomatic protest because they claimed it as that they have sovereignty over Sandy Cay. We should rebut that. I mean, we have an obligation to rebut that. And then we should challenge them to submit that dispute to arbitration. In fact, my proposal is challenge China, Vietnam, and Malaysia to submit the entire dispute in the Calayan Island group, the entire Spratlys, to arbitration. Because that's a requirement under international law, under the UN Charter. All disputes must be settled peacefully by negotiation, mediation, and finally by arbitration. And we've been talking about this for the longest time. It's about time to submit this to arbitration. Now, if China does not agree, then we will tell the world, we're ready, but China doesn't want to because their title is very dubious. Because if you have a strong title, you would fight it out. But China, I'm sure China will not submit this to arbitration because they know they will lose again.
But to challenge them is a way of undermining their argument, right?
Yes, that will undermine their argument, and that will show the world that we are ready to settle this peacefully in accordance with the UN Charter. But China is the one who refuses to submit this to peaceful arbitration.
Admiral, let's talk about the other side of the coin, the United States. Okay, so Pete Haxett was just here the other month, and you know, now we have these massive Balikatan exercises. Is the timing also curious? Because this year's Balikatan is pretty big too. I mean, if not the biggest, right? What I heard, 11,000 American troops will be participating, although the numbers of Filipino troops goes from 5,000 to 6,000. The Japanese have not ratified yet. I was just talking to their PM office kahapon, but this year is the year that at least technically they have a visiting forces style agreement with us, right? RRA, the Reciprocal Access Agreement, and then there are the Australians, plus the fact na expand pa yung observers for new European countries, Czech Republic, you have Lithuania, Netherlands, and Poland, of course, a very important country we had a discussion over recently. Is the timing curious? And then at the same time, what is your read of the US in terms of their strategic reassurance so far? Because we have been having this debate for the past basically 5 months since the November elections. Is second Trump administration a cause for worry? Is it continuity? Is it continuity plus uncertainty, or something totally else? What is your read so far of the Haxett visit and the Balikatan against the backdrop of everything we've been discussing with China, vis-a-vis China?
Well, for number one, for Balikatan muna, no? So, Balikatan takes 1 year to plan. So
done na yan.
these
Done and
activities
dusted.
in Balikatan now were planned immediately after yung Balikatan last year.
Right.
So in the same vein, after yung Balikatan natin ngayon, they immediately revert to a planning dito. So they will plan for the 2026 Balikatan.
So doon natin malaman how much they're invested in this.
Correct.
Pag
So
ganun.
this one was planned last year.
Okay.
So it predates yung Trump presidency.
But couldn't they reverse it? Like the NMS's deployment, was that
They could have adjusted kasi normally it's a three-phase planning process.
okay.
So, maaaring nag-correct sila. The last one would probably be around January of this year.
Right.
So maybe
So pasok na.
yeah,
Trump admin, yeah.
Dun sa yes.
And what is your read? So I think we can say if really Trump administration guys wanted to pull out or send a signal, because they did that with Europeans, right? They pulled out some of the exercises or signaled that they don't want to pulled out some troops even from Europe, if I'm not mistaken, right? But this one, it looks like it's just as big as last year, if not bigger, and you have full-scale simulations, full-scale war simulations. You have coordinated. We'll use BrahMos, they'll say NMSs. So even the cadence and the type of the exercises are pretty consequential, aren't they, Admiral?
Going by yung major events for Balikatan exercise this year, I think nakikita na natin yung compared to previous Balikatan exercises na it was constructed in a way parang loosely kasi hindi siya there's no anchor to yung concept, no? But dito nakita natin it's geared towards addressing yung principal concerns natin with China, particularly. Number one would be yung surface fleet niya. So nakita niyo dito, yung laman ng events nila is maritime strike, yung joint patrols, yung testing of the missile systems, and it covers both South China Sea, West Philippine Sea, at saka dito sa may Bashi Channel Luzon Strait area, which would be the potential areas of concern natin vis-a-vis China. In any scenario.
Justice, I want to go back to this. Of course, the other backdrop to this, I know you're a bit more skeptical of the Trump administration. I'm just trying to have a balanced discussion here. The other backdrop here is General Bronner saying in Northern Luzon, right? It was in North Command earlier this one, saying that talagang wala tayong magagawa. I mean, we have to be prepared and we cannot be neutral on the Taiwan issue. And it looks like this is really triggering the Chinese again, if we can put it that way. I mean, what is your read, Justice? That you see, basically, my framing is this way. Like with the Trump administration, with the second Trump, go big or go home. Parang ang nangyayari dito, di ba? If if you want to be on good side of the U.S., you go with us all in on the Taiwan issue and everything else. Or do you think, Justice, that still it's too early to say really where the Trump administration stands in the greater scheme of things? Because last time I checked, Trump had a good interaction with Marcos and all the other day, and so far he's not saying anything. So I'm glad. I'm just don't say anything, right? Yeah. What is your read here? Kasi ang kausap ko ng ibang tao is parang papunta na tayo sa phase 2 ng involvement sa Taiwan. Kasi parang the phase 1 was maybe we'll let some EDCA there. Maybe, Marcos said, maybe offensive, maybe not offensive. Ngayon, medyo parang wala na yung it's so hard to say na we'll not be involved in Taiwan. Where Bronner basically said we have to prepare now for a war scenario. Kayo, anong read nyo, Justice, on this?
Well,
The big picture, yeah.
yeah, I agree with General Browner because in any invasion by China of Taiwan, China will block the Basi Channel. And the Basi Channel is part of our territorial sea. We have to respond. That's why I agree that we put up EDCA sites there just to ensure that if China blocks the Basi Channel, and that's our territorial sea, we are affected there. We have to assert our sovereignty over the territorial sea. Then we are prepared. The other thing there is if there's a incident in the West Philippine Sea, let's say in the Spratlys or in Ayungin Shoal, the only way the U.S. can help us in Ayungin Shoal and the Spratlys is for their naval vessels to pass through the Basi Channel. That's the only way.
So you have to keep it open.
Yeah, so we have to keep it open.
Yeah.
And that's why we will always be involved, whether it's an incident or whether it's an invasion by China of Taiwan or it's a skirmish in the Spratlys or Ayungin Shoal. We have to maintain, we have to ensure that the American vessels can pass through the Basi Channel.
I did a war game with a couple of colleagues in Tokyo last year, a simulation scenario. If you were Indonesia, you have 400,000 people in Taiwan. Basically, your option number one would be negotiate with China to get your people out and basically even toe China's line. Like, okay, I'll say whatever you want, just let my people out. That is not an option for the Philippines, right?
Yeah, that's not an option.
But you have 250,000 people there. So how do you get them out? And at the same time, how can you be a reliable ally while protecting our bases and territorial sea in that area, right? That's tricky.
Yeah, well, the number one thing is we have to maintain our control over the Basi Channel because that's our own channel.
Yeah.
So, well, I think we can bring back our people from Taiwan. That will take time. But we cannot bring them back if we don't control the Basi Channel. So you have to control the Basi Channel.
And Admiral, you were the one, I think, at least on the record, who really said, like, okay, nakakabahala yung nangyari sa West Philippine Sea, bantayan natin yan, mahabang usapan yan. And Justice Carpio, memorably said it's a generational challenge. Pero yung issue ng Taiwan, baka hindi na siya aabot ng isang generation. Baka things will change in the next few years. Again, I personally, I just finished a 12,000 word essay on PLA posture in Taiwan. Like, Xi Jinping never said we'll attack Taiwan by 2027. He said we should be prepared or in a position to be able to effectively invade Taiwan. But to be able to effectively invade Taiwan will also mean what is Taiwan and the rest doing, right? So if we, meaning Americans, Japanese, Philippines, all of us do our part, mahirapan ng China to be in a position to make that decision, right? But what I found very illuminating, Admiral, with your intervention is that parang point mo is, parang mas nightmare pa, parang kung 7 circles of hell ito, mas hell ito kung yung China mismo ang kapitbahay mo dyan sa Taiwan. So you're like, imagine like communist China like next to Mavulis and northern Philippines, right? Can you tell me, since when we began discussing this Taiwan, how far we have come, or have we come far enough, or are we going into the really decision point, or maybe things are already happening as we speak, that the preparation is going on and we're looking at really preparing for all-out war and be involved in a kind of a multilateral response?
Okay, if I recall right, the analogy I gave you was if Philippines was Poland, Taiwan is our Ukraine.
Yep.
And China is Russia. That means Taiwan is basically our buffer state. Okay. So we would like to have maintain yung status quo, whatever is yung away nila ng China at saka ng Taiwan, as long as it is kept at the political and the diplomatic end of things, okay lang. But it becomes kinetic, then becomes a problem. As you said, we do not want China to be our neighbor. That would create a geopolitical dilemma for us, particularly sa Northern Philippines. Justice Carpio has mentioned, Basi Channel is in military parlance, a potential decisive point for any conflict. It affects three scenarios for China. They need Basi Channel to make sure that the U.S. Navy does not enter the South China Sea in case they want to isolate the U.S. Navy. They need Basi Channel if they want to gain ingress sa southern Taiwan, particularly in Port of Kaohsiung. Okay? Kasi they need to start, as Justice
Yun
Carpio
yung most
said,
likely invasion.
Yeah,
diba?
kasi they need to control yung Basi Channel and Luzon Strait. That means Batanes Group of Islands becomes a legitimate military objective. So they will need to take control of those islands, kahit temporarily, just to make sure that they have effective sea control. The third scenario is yung nangyayari to Solomon Islands, which is not in our radar. Okay, China has gained some form of footprint doon sa island Pacific states in the Pacific. Particularly, ang target nila doon are yung island states that were formerly used by the Japanese in the United States as naval or air bases during the Second World War. So makita mo kagad meron ng elements of maritime strategy doon sa galaw nila. It's not just purely political warfare or influence operations. That's just the means. The end is a coherent maritime picture. We are getting a coherent maritime picture na maybe to their mind, kontrolado na nila yung first island chain to some extent.
Right.
Because they already have preponderance of force. Combination of the
You mean East and South China Sea?
Yes.
Yeah.
In a way, yes. Whether we admit it or not, they are the one driving the scenario dito. Tapos, they have escalation dominance.
Right.
So they're not way past that yung nakita mo, yung movement nila dito sa Philippine Sea, way past the eastern part of the Philippines, is moving towards the third island, the new third island chain, which is going to the Mid-Pacific.
Yeah.
So tayo, yung Philippines sa archipelago, yung threat axis natin kasi naka-orient sa South China Sea. But because of the developments in Taiwan, tsaka sa Mid-Pacific, from a resource management and defense planning context, medyo nightmare scenario yun. Kasi tatlong fronts na yung titignan
Yeah.
mo. Now, how will you know, And para tayong yung French army, mag-inulan World War II. We are oriented towards just one front.
While you can be,
And the German Blitzkrieg went around that front,
Yeah.
that Maginot Line. So yun yung problema natin.
Yeah, I think we have to engage our neighbors in the Pacific Island states.
Too, yeah.
Because first of all, historically, they are Austronesians. We are Austronesians.
Similar
We
to
belong
us,
to the same racial stock. Their problem is many of their islands or the entire country might be underwater because of
Climate
sea level
change,
rise.
yeah.
And where will they go? Well, we are the natural refuge. We can offer them, one state there is about 200,000 people at most. So we can offer them to resettle in the Philippines. We have 7,000 islands.
Yeah.
And their value, their wealth really lies in their exclusive economic zone. Because the island itself, where they live, it's just a rock. I mean, it's not really good for agriculture, but because the island generates a 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone, that's rich in fish, oil, and gas.
Yeah.
So, under the present state of the UNCLOS, if you lose your island because of natural causes, you lose your exclusive economic zone. So, we can offer them assistance. One, we will campaign among the UNCLOS members that we will make an exception for Pacific Island states.
To maintain their EEZ.
Yeah, your EZ will remain. Second, we will offer you refuge here in one or two of our islands. And since you will be getting royalty from licenses to other countries to fish in your huge maritime area, you will have enough financial resources to maintain your people here. You won't be subsidizing them. So, offering this to them will at least give them an option, because right now it's only China that's offering them. But China wants, if they become submerged, if they are submerged, China would want that their huge EEZ would become part of the high seas because China then can fish there.
Whatever they want, yeah.
Because
Do
China has
whatever
the largest fishing fleet in the world. So they will not join with China.
So you say China has an interest in these countries disappearing? Is
Yes.
that what you're saying? I'm just putting it brutally,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
that's it. And we have to tell them, we can give you refuge here in one or two of our islands. At least you will remain intact. Your culture will remain. Your families will stay together. But if you are dispersed all over the world, you're gone forever. And so we will also help them maintain their EEZ so they'll have a source of income. That's very valuable. That can support them.
So a kind of a Pan-Pacific alliance.
Yes. And
That's an interesting
what is important is they are members of the UN. They have one vote.
Which counts as any other country, no matter the size. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
So I think we should have a conscious effort to get them on our side.
Yes.
Because it's only China offering them now assistance. But China has an ulterior motive. China wants them to disappear as an island so that their huge EEZ will become part of the high seas and the Chinese fishing fleet will be there.
Parang hindi na alter yung medyo more than alter yung very
Yeah, but
sinister. Yeah.
we have to devise a way to get them on our side. Because first of all, historically, I mean, in terms of kinship, we belong to the same
That's
racial
important
stock.
you say that because even when I was in New Zealand last year, they were saying the Chinese are reaching even to the Maui population,
Yeah.
saying we're of the same racial. Like they play that game, and that's why the New Zealand government is also very conscious to emphasize their Maui identity. And in fact, yung previous foreign minister nila has very strong Maui. And the idea here is that New Zealand is already reaching out to these communities. Australia has an interest there, so maybe we can work.
Yes,
with
we
these countries.
should. We should because
Sorry.
we need them in terms of vote in the UN, and we need them on our side. And they're Austronesians just like us. I mean, the Austronesians came from Taiwan. They migrated to Luzon, to Visayas, Mindanao, all the way to the Polynesia,
Hopscotch their way,
Melanesia,
and then New Zealand, yeah.
everywhere. So I think we have to think already how to get them on our side.
Admiral, should we do more drills also in the third island chain? I mean, I know like basically what you're saying, nasa sandwich na tayo dito. But is sometimes the best way to get out of a siege is to project power,
I think number one,
despite our limited.
we need to think strategically.
Yeah.
And walang awareness kasi na may problema doon eh. It's not really a conversation in government.
It's not in the
Parang
horizon.
When
yeah.
we started with the political warfare, parang dalawa na nag-uusap na.
Sharp power. We were
Sharp
among the
power.
first people using. No one was using it. What's that?
So yun na nga. So we need to actually cascade the idea. Second is
That's why we do this, yeah.
Aside from yung historical cultural roots natin, there's a significant Filipino diaspora dun sa atin.
Yeah.
True.
That can
And the
be
UN
yes.
staff people, may Pinoy,
And
yeah.
Maybe we need a little soft power strategy to
Very good point.
engage them.
Very good point, yeah.
That would cover yung proposal ni Justice Carpio.
Yeah. The Congress can pass a resolution, just a resolution. That
Solidarity, something like that.
yeah, we will say that because of climate change, they will be underwater. We are offering them refuge here. We've been welcoming to refugees. We welcomed the
Rohingya,
Jews,
yeah.
the White Russians. We even
Poles, yeah.
with the Vietnamese, even the Rohingya. Duterte offered to host them here.
Maybe Maldives too. I mean, they got
Maldives will
money,
be,
right? Maldives is rich.
will be underwater.
Yun nga, like maybe we can offer Maldives too. I mean, I think, who knows, the next thing you know, with India, we can have a job. But no, I mean, I'm in principle, we have been discussing this. I mean, our friends in the US, Australia, everyone's talking about the South Pacific. And in fact, the first time I heard the third island chain was in New Zealand when we were doing conference last year. It's like, wait, there's a third island chain now? Like, is this about China doing something? And I was really, I found it interesting how China was using this, we're all Asians, we're together, like talking to the Maui communities inside New Zealand and all. And I felt, oh nga, saan tayo sa usapin yan? And so you have to, again, go big or go home, right? Like you have to really think outside the box, right? Because things are tightening up on the Philippines. But I mean, you, Admiral, personally, how worried are you about the Taiwan scenario? Like, in terms of probability. Kanina, we talked about scenario. Now, in terms of probability, like from what you see on the ground or in the water or something, and how important is a Typhoon missile? Because like a single battery, I'm not sure can make much of a difference. But if it's like multiple Typhoon batteries in northern Philippines, I don't know, expanded Patron missiles in Okinawa and Taiwan, Guam having its own Typhoon and all, that make it very almost impossible for China to have an easy way to invade Taiwan anytime soon?
I think
I call it the Great Wall of Missiles, if I can
the
put it that way.
linchpin of that is a sort of an integrated defense system among the
Right.
coastal states affected. Of course, but the elephant in the room there is Taiwan. So you need a collaboration between South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines at the minimum.
With Australia likely in the rear, deployed.
Masyado siyang
Malayo.
Asia for silent sea concern. But ito kasi ito yung dilemma natin. If I were Beijing and I was
Yeah.
the one if I really have malicious intent on Taiwan,
Right.
I will shape yung battle space in such a way that I will neutralize yung countries na hindi sila maka-reinforce sa Taiwan.
And we're the soft spot
Yeah,
for it?
for South Korea. Simple lang naman yan eh. I asked
North Korea
to do
to-
something funny
And
and distract South Korea.
That
If I
makes
distract
sense.
South Korea, I distract Japan. Go chain yan eh. Sa Philippines naman, they just need to do like tinker around with their local elections eh.
We should discuss shortly in the next
Which is more
episode.
than
Yeah.
enough to remember from a sharp power perspective, for China to claim victory over the Philippines, they just need to divide us. They don't need to physically occupy any place.
Yeah.
In fact, dito na nga sila. Okay. And we're struggling to keep them at bay. So, having the Filipinos fighting each other is already a win for them. So, imbis we're looking at Taiwan, we're looking at issues involving
Domestic
Filipinos
politics.
versus
So what you're saying is that you can bog down the Koreans and the Japanese with the North Koreans, with the Philippines just bog down on each other. Like,
Yeah.
let them bog down themselves.
Yeah, because the nexus of our geopolitical dilemma is actually yung domestic politics
Right.
natin now, yung current natin. Kasi nakatay-in siya dun sa natin. So if I get them distracted in that such a way, then I open field na yung Taiwan.
Oh, but-
We're not even talking of.
Yeah, I understand. That's why China has an interest also in things not being very stable here, to put it mildly,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
It's similar to the situation in Mindanao in 70s.
Malaysia bogging us down
The
over
security,
Sabah.
the
Yeah.
security of our neighbor is dependent on our level of instability ng
Yeah, yeah.
Mindanao.
The insecurity of Mindanao is the security of Sabah. That's the Malaysian
Correct.
thinking,
The more-
basically. Yeah.
The more destabilized you are, the more
Yeah.
secure I am.
Yeah.
Parang ganun.
Basically, zero sum kind of thinking. Justice, before we end this episode, because the next episode we'll go deeper into the issue of malign foreign interference, LGUs being infiltrated. But what is your read of the Trump administration after the Hexed visit and amid the balikatan? And I don't know. So far, Trump's still not doing. I mean, suspended naman yung tariffs. Are you still worried that U.S. might just pull the rug from below us at some point in the near future, or you think that we're still doing enough in terms of getting whatever we can get out of U.S., but at the same time diversifying? I just mentioned a while ago there are 4 new European observers this year in Balikatan. Prime Minister Ishida is here as Ishiba, sorry, is here as we speak, right? I won't be surprised that major European or 2 sovereigns will be here in the coming months. So, what do you think? Are we being smart so far in terms of our foreign policy diversification, or rather leveraging of our existing network of alliances?
Yeah, I think we're doing the right thing by expanding our security alliances, security arrangements. We are signing the visiting forces agreement with New Zealand. We're about to.
Canada,
Japan is about to ratify the reciprocal access agreement. I think UK and France want also a visiting forces agreement. We can do one with Canada. So I think we should proceed with that. Of course, the US is a big problem because everybody below Trump are our friends. I mean, the State Department,
Rubio,
the Congress, the House and the Senate, they are good friends. But Trump is always the unpredictable guy. So that's the big problem there. But Trump is Trump, so we just have to face him. and prepare also for the day when I've always said that the U.S. had been isolationist at least 2 times in the past, before World War I, before World War II, and it could happen again. And Trump is the guy who could bring it about. So we have to prepare just in case. And I think we're doing that correctly by expanding our security relationship with other countries.
Oh, yeah. I would rather call it anti-internationalist even, right? What we're seeing right now, this open question. Except, Admiral, right, to be fair, right? One of the most interesting analysis I've heard of Trump is that the guy is tactically all over the place, but strategically you can see where he's going, right? Which is basically a reassertion of American manufacturing industrial power, because that inevitably has a national security and global leadership ramification. We have discussed this. U.S. industrial capacity is nowhere near to where it should be in terms of keeping up with where China is. Like the ability of China to just churn out warships, maybe not at the same quality, although I don't know, AI and everything could change things. But clearly, Trump is correct to say U.S. has to revive its industrial capacity. I think a lot of his supporters are correct to say that America has to rebuild these economic foundations. So these tactics may be all over the place. Like today tariff, tomorrow no, today this. But I think we kind of can get a sense that there's a logic, there's a method to this madness. That the end goal he wants for America is something that is legitimate, that is for Americans. But more importantly, ako kasi ang basa ko dito, Admiral and Justice Carpio, is the second Trump administration, actually even below Trump is war, like J.D. Vance is probably even more anti-internationalist, I would say. Like on Europe, good luck talaga. Like I think that's going to be a very tricky ideological issue even. Middle East, as we speak, Witkoff and the second Trump administration are opening up communication channels with both Iran and Russia, the two other major powers who are not on the side of the West. But I always felt, when it comes to our region, even Trump would be a bit different, take exception. Kasi parang, first of all, this is the most important region economically, demographically, and even more in the coming decades. And second, China is a threat in ways that Russia, Iran, none of those countries will ever be or have ever been. So what I'm saying is this: Trump will not be Trump is not your usual guy in terms of, oh, this is the international order, will be the policeman, blah. But the Trump administration could be more like, okay, Europe, bahala kayo sa buhay nyo, Middle East, bahala kayo sa buhay nyo, we'll just do something, tapos na. Pero ito, Asia, mahalaga to, kasi this is China. They're challenging us, and in fact, arguably even surpassing us on some very critical technologies. Ikaw, anong read mo, Admiral, on this? I mean, is this another way of probably looking at this issue before pushing the panic buttons? Kasi ako, when I try to see it from that perspective, I'm not as nonchalant as some of our officials. Maybe they're paid to be relaxed on the U.S. question. But at the same time, like I'm like, nothing much surprises me about Trump anymore, to be honest. Like, I haven't seen anything from Trump so far that has surprised me.
Okay. I think Trump is fighting two fronts. Yung domestic front niya, he inherited a damaged America.
Right.
Problematic America. You might say, you mentioned about industrialization. It can be more fundamental than that. Maybe the question is, did globalization actually damage America's industrial capacity?
Yeah.
So, kasi everything went out of the US.
Absolutely. I mean, complete collapse of manufacturing share of
yun yung ano niya. And of course, may mga socio-cultural issues siya, immigration issues siya to deal with. Okay. So, mayroong internal resistance between him and the Democrats sa loob. Yun yung internal niya na sinusolve. Now, strategically, I think, he knows where he's going, but of course, it's not going to be an easy road. He needs an exit strategy sa Europe and an exit strategy sa Middle East. Okay. I think for the Middle East, basically mas madali kasi basically subcontracted to Israel yung ano.
And then you gotta deal with Iran and nuclear issue, and you can keep things on
So medyo na-stabilize yung Gaza in the last few months. Yung Europe medyo problematic kasi may dynamic siya with the EU states.
Sure.
And of course, mayroon din siya dynamic between kay Zelensky at kay Putin who's trying to manage. So it's not going to be So he needs to exit from those two fronts in order to focus on China and Indo-Pacific.
Yeah.
So nakita naman natin may focus siya eh. But he's trying to tweak in a way na parang may burden sharing component pa rin. So makita nyo, iba yung trato niya sa South Korea, iba yung trato niya sa Japan, iba yung trato niya sa Philippines. In terms of So merong method to the madness yung but it's not going to be easy kasi may mga resistance both in the international international front tsaka within the domestic situation niya sa Amerika that he needs to deal with. Kasi they're not going to go down easy dun sa loob sa Amerika. They're fighting him on all fronts on the issues.
And he's fighting everyone on all fronts. I mean, it's his fault too. I mean, like the university fight. We talked about the Harvard issue just the other day. Yeah. He's not making it easy for America. The tariffs, I think, are all over the place. I mean, I get that he wants to bring back manufacturing. I'm just not saying how those tariff strategy will bring back the. If I'm an American company, I'm just going to wait out this craziness. I'm not going to put back 10 billions in the U.S. when it's so expensive to produce in the U.S. I'll look at Mexico. I'll look at
But if you note, yung tariff effort niya is all over the place. It's directed internally. It's also directed at allies and partners. Tapos directed to China. So it's moving everywhere.
Yeah.
So medyo messy nga.
Yun nga, like kaya sabi ko, like the strategy makes sense to me. Like I understand his sense of urgency. He has had this since 1980s, right? Like the Japanese are overtaking us, and now it's Chinese. Some would even say there could be some sort of even a racialist aspect to this, that because this is the Asians, but I can see where the strategy is going, but the tactics are very problematic to me. I just don't see how this is going to work, like pissing off everyone right and left, tariffing everyone. That's not going to bring you back to manufacturing, is it?
Yeah, I think his basic assumption
and fighting
is,
all of these fights internally. Yeah.
His basic assumption is you can bring back manufacturing to the U.S. But the problem there is the cost of labor is very high in the U.S. China has the upper hand right now because of low labor costs.
And automation. They're really good in using robots and automation.
Yeah, but with robots now, you do away with low-cost labor because robots can replace low-cost labor. So it will be another kind of economy. It will not be the advantage of China with low labor costs can be offset because there will be robots and the cost will be the same for both the U.S.
but
and China.
But no job for the Rust Belt Americans who voted for Trump, right? I mean, that's his base thing kasi.
That's why Trump should leapfrog the 20th century idea that we have to bring back manufacturing.
Steel,
you cannot do that because of high labor costs in the U.S. But he has to change the manufacturing, no longer labor, but now robots. And that can be done. It's almost there.
Yeah.
It's almost there. So that should be the strategy of
industrial
Trump.
strategy.
Yeah, but that will happen because the Tesla robots are about to break out now.
Yeah.
So the China will have a problem because they will lose their advantage of low labor costs. India will have a problem because the robots can do those things
right.
already.
So the low cost will no longer be an attraction.
Low cost will no longer be an advantage.
Yeah.
And that will bring back manufacturing to the U.S. It will be by technology that you bring back manufacturing, not by tariff. So he should double down on the technology to bring back manufacturing in the U.S. In other words, the manufacturing, the plants now will be totally automated. The car will just come out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if people have seen the Xiaomi new car, electric car, the commercial. The commercial has no human beings involved. Like there are no celebrities, there's no worker. It's just like stuff goes inside the factory, becomes a car, and then it comes out. That's just the commercial. It's incredible. It's completely automated.
And the new cars of Tesla now, the Model 2, will be produced at every 5 seconds. They can produce.
Insane, right?
So that will happen.
3D printing pa, di ba? Yeah.
So that will be the way out for the US. Not to bring back manufacturing.
Yeah,
because they have to change the type of manufacturing.
But there's politics, right? I keep on saying he has to keep happy his base, right? Yeah.
But I think he has not thought this through. So if he's using tariff, he's using the wrong method. That's one thing. The other thing there is Trump could just say, okay, let's just divide the world. Russia, take That's your area.
Relation, yeah.
China, the first island chain is all yours. And that's our problem.
That's your worry pa rin.
Modus vivendi.
So
Yeah.
still the three C's
Yeah,
are
in
kind
other words,
of a
it
scenario.
will be Yalta 2.0.
Yeah. Or Tehran conference.
So
right?
that's the rationale that why we need to look at we need a plan B. We need to look at other strategic partners within the region that have the same
Yeah.
interests as us.
And I think Trump, that is the way out of Trump because it's just too much for him to be fighting Russia and China and
bogged down in the Middle
yeah.
East with Iran.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he will say, okay, let's just divide the world. It's just too big for the
US to handle.
for one country.
Yeah.
So China will say, okay, everything within the first island chain is ours. And Trump will be happy.
Parang reverse Monroe Doctrine.
Or so you don't see a reverse Nixon here? Like he'll get Russia to be on his side, or at least Russia soften on the China front? Because I'm not seeing Russia showing solidarity with China nowadays that much. They're more focused on getting a deal.
European academe sabi na they understood the idea, but they said it wouldn't work with Putin. And the context is totally different with Russia.
Yeah, but Putin, Trump is already agreeable to Putin. Take Ukraine and be happy with Ukraine. So that's one half already. The other, he has to work it out with President Xi. But if he does that, then that will be the new world order.
And that's why we middle powers have to work with the Japanese, with the Australians, because none of us want to be. The Japanese. I think the current Japanese prime minister was very tough also when the Americans were telling them you have to spend this much, that much. No, you're not going to tell us what to do. Yeah.
For Japan, China is an existential threat.
Too, yeah.
And for South Korea, the same because of North Korea. So.
And India too. They have territorial disputes, massive territorial disputes. Yeah.
Well, India can hold off China because it's nuclear armed.
And its size, yeah.
So, Trump would still upset the international world order by agreeing to divide the world three ways.
So what you're saying is that, in theory, we can see where the strategy is, all the tactics are all over the place. In theory, you can say, maybe you can try a reverse Nixon or kind of carve it out here and carve it out there, but you're just not seeing it happening because it will take so many factors to come together, not to mention a lot of discipline just to get one major deal. Like if you go into the nitty-gritty of the Ukraine deal, it will be very complicated.
Yeah,
a revive Iran nuclear deal will be very complicated. Yeah.
Yeah, Europe will oppose a deal with on Ukraine because for them, Russia is an existential threat.
So yun nga, like this is where like Trump brings the advantage of big picture, new vibes. But vibe shift alone is not gonna solve your problem, right? You need nitty-gritty, technical, step by step. And I think this is where people probably will miss Obama days and all when you had a more methodical approach to things. It's interesting. I mean, like that was the criticism of Obama and other people. Like they're too slow, they're too deliberate, etc. Now, man, things are fast, but you don't know how sustainable it is, right?
But remember, we lost, not lost, but we had problems with Carbo in 2012 during the Obama.
Because he's taking his time. He's like looking at 10 different angles, right? Yeah. But Trump, no, like we do
but
this.
You must remember, Trump 1.0 was the first time that the U.S. actually recognized China as a strategic competitor. O peer competitor.
Yeah, the 2018 National Defense
carry
Strategy.
over lang yung kay Biden eh.
Yeah.
So, we have to give credit to where credit is due. Si Trump yung naka-recognize sa China.
Trump 1.0.
Yeah.
But our problem isn't 2.0 quite different because this is a more legacy, more, pugnacious even some would say version of the
I think
first
because
one.
hindi na-sustain yung ano niya eh. Whatever he planned out during yung Trump 1.0. Of course, hindi na-sustain during the Biden term. So he need to get back into the rhythm of things eh.
And you think in terms of Justice was saying automation seems to be the other way. My other understanding is you could have a pan-North American kind of industrial base together with Canada and Mexico.
May NAFTA na sila after.
Exactly. Like you have a NAFTA there for a reason, right? Because the whole idea is that, US can actually have its own complete supply chain in the Americas and North America, like Canada, Mexico, and US put together. That's a massive, massive economic base.
Yeah.
Half a billion people.
The way Trump looked at it, parang naging vulnerability yung Canada and Mexico sa kanya.
Or satellite states, diba? Like the way he treats them and all.
Kasi in a way, parang na-friendshore sila ng China, not ng US.
Yeah, exactly. They got outmaneuvered, especially Mexico, right? A lot of Chinese investments, Chinese cars going out there. But at least Mexico is not facing what Vietnam is facing, which is potentially 47, 48%
Well, there's
tariffs.
a reason for that. Kasi China is
Using them as a secondary export hub.
friend-shore din siya ng China. Kaya mataas yung ano
That's a
nila.
very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because Vietnam is just a
They just
transshipment point.
stamp it
They
in
stamp.
Taiwan.
Yeah, at least there's manufacturing
in Mexico.
Mexico.
Yeah, and then you have to transfer it.
Dalawa yan, South Korea and Vietnam. Madali lang kasi malapit lang
Yeah.
sila. So yung made in China becomes a made in Vietnam or made in Korea.
Right. On that friend-shoring note, let's take a break. Thank you so much, Justice Carpio, for that fascinating overview. I'm sure Donald Trump would be happy with our very fair discussion of his... No, I like that. Like, sensible strategy, all over the place tactics, just to put it nicely. And that's where actually the problem comes, because tactics shape strategy also, right? But in the next episode, discuss naman natin yung parating na elections. What are the things you have to worry about? What are the things you have to be concerned about? And actually to push the envelope a bit better. Bakit yung survey sinasabi ng tao ng pro-China candidates pero biglang pag tinignan mo yung survey, sarang, interesting. This is what I'm saying. We can put it that way without being libelous. So on that note, thank you very much for joining us for this special, talagang VIP episode ng FYI. On the next episode, mas pag-usapan natin the Philippine elections.